Please be seated. Mr. Durk, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Curtis, can you just explain to the court why in the first interview did you make statements that in the second interview you went the other way on?
I honestly was scared. I didn't know if, even with me giving the information that I had, if he would walk out, if Tubbs would walk out of there. And then, I told on him.
You didn't want to look like you were responsible for Tubbs being held responsible for the murder.
Yes.
Did you feel that the detectives were going to find out who the killer was anyway?
Yes. Mhm.
You didn't want to give them up.
Right, correct.
Now, there was some questioning in one of the interviews about information that you had gotten from the streets, like we talked about before, certain people. Do you recall being asked about that?
I believe they asked. I don't recall exactly what was said. I'm sorry.
Okay. Were you asked about whether you were afraid of people
Yes.
on the streets?
Yes.
Remember that? Okay. And do you remember what you told them?
But yes, I am scared. I don't know what could happen, with me testifying and doing this. I am scared. I was scared then
And is there anyone in particular that you're scared of?
everyone. You just don't know who is doing what I'm doing. You never know. You hear about things that happen to people that testify, and I have my daughter, and that's it. I've lost my two boys, and if something was to happen to her or me, I don't know what I would do.
Are you scared because when you told the detectives that Davion admitted to the killing, that wasn't true? Is that why you're scared?
Scared that, yes, if he walked out of there, that something could happen to me and my daughter. Yes.
Are you scared because you're covering for somebody else who murdered Tony?
No.
Are you scared because if you revealed that it was somebody else that killed Tone, someone would go after you? Are you scared of that?
I don't.
Are you scared that the real killer will go after you if you reveal to police who the real killer is?
Yes. I don't know who. I don't know what would happen to me. Yes. I'm scared that in the first interview, that if I was to say that Tubbs told me that he did it, and to say that he didn't have my car and that he didn't have the keys and all that, and he walked out of there, who knows what would happen to me.
So who is the real killer?
Tubbs.
Antonio Parker.
Yes, Tubbs.
There isn't someone else that you're covering?
No, I gave my car to Tubbs. That's who had my car.
And you weren't working behind the scenes with someone like Jamel or something to kill Tom?
No. I don't even talk with Jamal like that. He texted me once and told me that some crackheads had told him that Tone had killed my son. And that was the only communication we had. And then I passed that along to the detectives.
Now, at the last trial, you were asked about Mr. O'Farrell asked you, would it be reasonable for you to be in fear of Jamel? Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you recall your answer was yes?
Yes, I believe I said yes.
Okay. Just explain why you believe it would be reasonable for you to be in fear of Jamel, or is that a correct answer?
Because I'm giving information that he gave me to the police.
It's not because you're covering for him.
No, it's because I'm giving information as far as him telling me that he had paid some crackheads, which means drug addicts, to find out who killed my son. And it was Tone, he said. So I'm scared. I'm passing that information along to the detectives. What if he finds out?
And again, Jamel is a friend of Davion, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So why would Jamel want you to pin it on Davion? Does that make any sense?
No.
Okay. And the same thing with Garland. I mean, Garland's a good friend with Davion, correct?
Yes, I believe they're cousins, yes.
So why would he want you to pin it on Davion? Does that make sense?
No.
All right, now. You, at the time you're talking to the detectives, you're taking some medication. Do you recall that?
Yes, I was. Mhm.
Now, do you recall specifically what you had been taking?
There were a few medications. I was prescribed Paxil, and I was also taking Adderall and Norco.
And not all of that was prescribed, correct?
No, not all of it was prescribed.
And were you? And what was the reason for you taking those?
Trying to cover up my pain, trying to ease my pain from the loss of my boys, which I know wasn't the right way to go, the right route. But at that time, I was just so hurt, and it seemed to just hide and cover the pain.
Were you taking the same dosage every time?
It just depends. Some days I might take 2, some days I might take 3 or 4, but never where I couldn't function. Had the same job for 20 years, and I was able to work my job and able to do things with my daughter and live a normal life. That just kind of covered my pain.
So when you were talking to the detectives on January 30th, would of any of what you had been taking, have you been under the influence of that so that it affected you anyway in your memory or your ability to communicate information?
No.
No? Okay. And then on January 28th, when you had met with Davion and your son's father, Garland, on that particular day, did any of those medications affect you in any way that would affect what you heard or what you're communicating now as far as what you heard?
No. Mm-mm.
And on the other days that we referred to, so referencing when you gave Davion the car, when you talked to him about that, when you talked to Davion about the gun, you gave Davion the gun, and all the way back to your son Brandon's murder. During that period of time, were you ever under the influence so that you can't recall correctly what had happened? You have issues as far as mental impairment of being able to recall or communicate information from that period of time?
No.
And how about marijuana? Did you ever smoke marijuana?
No. Mm-mm.
And then today, are you under the influence of anything today as you testify?
No, just my Paxil that's prescribed to me for my depression.
So before I leave you, Ms. Curtis, just a few other things. Ms. Curtis, I'm just going to show you, look at exhibit 14. You recognize those?
Yes, I do. Picture of the 2009 Dodge Charger that belonged to me.
So, the car and both of them.
Yes. Mhm.
Have the true after, so both 14, 15, and true after.
Yes. Mhm. You're welcome.
You could offer to have them marked.
Mr. O'Farrell,
No objection, Judge.
exhibit 14 and 15 will be admitted.
And if 13 has not been admitted, staff says admit that.
Exhibit 13 will also be admitted.
And that's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Curtis.
You're welcome.
Questions, Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Curtis, have you examined Exhibit 13?
I have seen.
Okay.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
You're familiar with these pages, is that
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
Are these the communications that you received from Jamel and then forwarded to the police?
Yes. Mhm.
And you indicated, these indicate that they were sent to the police on January 24th, as the prosecutor described, correct?
Yes.
But you said you believe you sent them earlier?
I thought they were sent earlier than that. Yes.
You remember testifying in the second trial in this case, which was in March of this year?
Yes, I do.
You remember being asked the same questions about when it was sent?
Yes, I don't recall what I said. Yes.
I may approach, Judge, it would be pages 100 and 101 from the transcript of the second trial, March 3rd, 2021, volume 3.
Page. it says I don't recall. I don't recall.
Now, you just got done testifying in regard to your lack of fear of Jamel, that he had only communicated with you once. Do you remember just telling the prosecutor that a few minutes ago?
Yes,
So if he only communicated to you once, are you referring to this communication that you then forwarded on to the police?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So these were what, Facebook communications that Mr. Jamel sent to you?
Yes, I believe Facebook and yes.
Okay. And they were sent to you personally,
Yes, they were sent, yes.
and then you forwarded them to the police?
Forwarded it to Detective Wortley, I believe, or Detective Bush, one of them, yes.
The police.
Yes.
And of course, Jamel was not aware of that, was he?
No,
He wasn't cooperating with the police, was he?
I don't know that. I don't know what Jamal was doing.
Is it your communication here? You say, this is Lisa, Brandon's mom. I was letting you know, this is who the streets are saying killed Brandon. He goes by Tone. He is the nephew of Keisha, who was a tenant at the McGregor Manor apartment complex, but they have moved now. I have heard Brandon's friends say they are looking for him. He has me and Tubbs and some other Brandon's friends. I believe it's cut off or from communicating with them. Is that your communication to the police? Is that like a cover letter?
I believe that's like a snapshot, what you snapshot, and I forwarded it to the detectives.
Okay.
So the conversation, I snapshot the conversation and sent it to them. If that
Where it
makes-
says, this is Lisa, Jamel didn't say he was Lisa, did he?
No,
Okay, so you're communicating this and then you attached what you had received from Jamel.
right. I let the detectives know this is Lisa and here you go. This is the information that I have.
So then it went on, well, it's in his page and in his about info about Tubbs, but Tubbs, nor I can go to his page. He blocked us a couple of days ago since he found out we heard. Are you referring to Tone?
Yes, I'm talking about Tone, yes.
And you're telling the police that that's the status, that you can no longer communicate with Tone?
I tried to go to his page and I couldn't go on his page. I could only see his profile picture. But at the same time, Facebook has settings where you can only let your friends see your page. So I guess that was incorrect in saying that he blocked me because I don't know that personally. I was assuming that it could have been that he had his page set up like that. So I
Okay.
was probably incorrect in saying that, assuming, I should say.
Okay. And then there's on the same page, I paid $3. They all gave me same name. His FB name, Will Brother Bean Boy Tone. Yeah, I just found out too. Which side of car was he found on? I need you call me. Are those?
That's Jamal sending me the information. Yes,
All right.
that's what I forwarded to the police. Every time I got information, I forwarded it to them.
And then there's it's Amber, last name starts with a G on the page. Is that your
No,
communication?
that's him telling me that there is a girl out there, maybe a sister, a cousin, and her name is Amber G. And that's where he is at sometimes or lives.
That's Jamel telling you
That's
that.
Jamal telling me that, yes.
So the police had this information then when you went for your interview on the 30th, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you know if Detective Wenzel was aware that you had a gun?
I don't know if he knew that. I don't recall. I imagine. I don't know, though.
So you go to the police station and you think you called to arrange to go talk to the police?
I don't remember if they contacted me or if I called them. It's been 3.5 years. I don't recall that, exactly what happened there.
Now, you had been informed that it was suspected that your car had been used to kill Antonio Parham, is that right?
Yes, they came up to my work where I was working and informed me. They asked me who had my car.
And then in questioning, the information about your gun came up. It was introduced by you that you had a gun and that you had, first you told them it had been taken without your knowledge. And then you changed your story to say that it was taken or given to Tubbs. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Now, when you talked to the police at the very beginning, did they tell you, this is your son who was killed and this is the guy who the rumor says killed your son? This is your car. This is your gun. Did they indicate to you that you might be in trouble?
No, they didn't, not that I recall.
Did they indicate to you who's Jamel?
It's been so long. I don't remember if they asked me who Jamal was. I know I sent the info, so I don't remember if the discussion of Jamal came up in the interviews. I don't remember, don't recall. Sorry.
You don't remember being told that they would have to drag Jamel into this?
I don't recall that.
Were you concerned at that time that Jamel would be accused of being the shooter?
I don't know what I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what you're saying. I was scared. If you're asking me if I was scared of them, yes. I don't
Okay.
know where you're going with that. I was scared of everyone.
Well, where I'm going doesn't really matter to the truth, does it? Can you just answer a question?
Sure.
Now, the prosecutor's gone through all of the times that you changed your stories here. And of course, you change your story basically every time you tell one. Is that true?
No, I don't recall that.
Well, you were first interviewed by the police on the 30th of January, about 3 days after Antonio was killed. Is that right?
Yes.
And you told them a story. You answered questions, you gave them a story.
I answered questions that they asked me, yes.
And you've acknowledged over and over to the prosecutor that some of that wasn't true.
Yes, I did.
And then you spoke to him again the next day on the 31st.
No, on the same day. All the interviews were on the same day.
There weren't some on the 31st?
No, they were all on the same day.
And so you changed your stories.
I ended up telling them the truth. Yes, I did.
You're saying that you told the truth then?
Yes, I ended up telling the truth before I left there, all in the same day.
And then in your preliminary examination, you were under oath in May of 2018, is that correct?
Yes. Mhm.
And were you confronted with differences in your story then?
I don't recall. It's been a long time.
And then you testified in connection with the first trial in this case in November of 2019, is that correct?
Yes, this is my third time doing this.
And weren't you confronted by me about those inconsistencies in the changes in your story at that time?
I don't recall. All this is just so much right now. I don't recall everything.
You're not
Sorry.
asked to recall everything. Do you recall being cross-examined?
I do recall being cross-examined,
recall
but I don't
being-
recall what was said. I'm sorry.
Do you recall being shown portions of your prior statements that were inconsistent with what you were testifying to in court?
No, I don't.
How about the second time in March of this year? Were you confronted with prior inconsistent statements from your statements or your previous examination under oath?
I don't recall.
Now, we actually had a trial scheduled for November of 2020 that had to be adjourned because of the virus. Do you recall that time frame?
I recall, yeah, there was the pandemic going on during that time, yes.
And you recall a telephone conversation with Detective Jacobs and the prosecutor that was done in conjunction with preparing for that case, for that trial?
Yes, I believe so.
And on that occasion, on October 26th of 2020, did you first then indicate your knowledge or information about Davion saying during the trip to the police to tell that he had lost his phone?
Yes, I do recall telling them that. Yes,
And is that the first time you told them that?
I don't recall that. I don't. I've been interviewed so many times.
Well, and you've changed your story so many times. Isn't that true?
No, it's not.
So all the way through this whole time, despite everything that the prosecutor asked you about, you've been telling the same thing?
I don't recall what has been said in the interviews and the trials.
Now, you indicated that you were taking medications that you didn't have a prescription for, right?
Correct, yes.
And those were opioids?
Yes,
You had them in your possession
yes, I did.
and you had obtained them without a prescription
Yes,
and you were using them on a regular basis.
yes.
When the police talked to you about your car being used to shoot Antonio Parham, did they tell you that the shooter was wearing a mask?
I don't recall if they did or not.
you picked up Davion Thompson and took him to the police to talk. Is
Yes.
that right? Did the police ask you to do that?
No. I don't recall how that went. I just know that he did go with me. And I took him down there.
And you told this jury that he wasn't coughing, he didn't show any signs of any ill health. Is that correct?
No, he didn't. That's why he had a mask on, like Mr. Fedorak, but he wasn't sick.
Okay. So you took him to the police wearing a mask.
Yes, he had a mask on. He had a mask when he came over to Don's house. Both times.
Now, he had indicated, or at least you told the police, that he told you he had lost his phone and he thought he had lost it at the hospital. Is that right?
Yes, he told me to say that he lost it at the hospital, though, not that he did lose it at the hospital.
And that's what you told the police on October 26th of 2020. Is that right?
I don't remember. I don't recall the exact date. I'm sorry.
Well, the prosecutor just went through your prior statements. That's not what you initially told the police. You said that he had told you he lost his phone.
No, he told me to say that he had lost his phone. I didn't say that he lost his phone, if that makes sense.
Well, that could, there is a difference. I agree
Yes.
with you there.
Yes,
There's no doubt that you were trying to reach Davion and couldn't reach him on the phone number that he was using that was originally your son's phone. Is that right?
yes, my son, he gave that to him probably 3 or 4 months before he passed in November.
And then you claim that you reached him on Facebook and also by using his friend Garland Davis's phone.
Yes,
And isn't it true that when you took him to the police for that interview, he had a new phone then?
I don't recall if he had a new phone with him or not. No,
And that he had already replaced the phone that he had lost?
I don't recall.
Now, that phone was in your name, wasn't it?
What phone, sir?
The phone of your son, Brandon, the phone that Davion was using?
Yes, yes, that was in my name. And then my son upgraded to a different phone. And so he gave that one to Davion.
And the information about it was with the same company. Was that Sprint or Verizon?
I believe then it was Verizon, yes.
And the information that's required to cancel that phone, you had, is that correct?
I'm not sure how that, I don't know. I'm not sure.
So you don't know anything about how the phone got canceled?
No, I don't, no.
Isn't it true that you began to change your story after Detective Giroux indicated to you that they would have to drag Jamel into this?
Not that I recall, sir, no.
I have just a moment, Your Honor. Do you recall statements from Detective Giroux about you not being a snitch? But it's not like Davion said he did it. Remember that?
I don't recall any statements about being a snitch. I'm sorry.
You may.
There was an interview, then another interview, and I think that was like with my phone. Yes, then on the second one.
I'm sorry, which page are we on now?
6.
You said detective, I don't see a detective Giroux on there. Which line? So the first interview?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
I'm sorry, counsel? I don't have.
Does that refresh your memory as to the statements that Detective Giroux was making to you?
Yes, it did say something
Pardon?
about snitching in there. Yes, he did.
Okay. And it would be, well, let's cross that bridge. Well, you had first asked just above that whether you would have to testify in court. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
You had just indicated you would be reluctant to testify in court.
Your Honor, it's not testimony, this is an interview.
Yes, I did ask if I would have to testify in court.
And then Detective Giroux says, well, let's cross that bridge when we get there. You know what I mean? It's not, think of it this way. You're not snitching, okay? This isn't snitching because you only know what you know.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to reading from the transcript. It's not clear to me how Mr. O'Farrell is allowed to use this. I don't see an inconsistent statement in here.
I think he was using to refresh her recollection of the interview with Detective Giroux, is that correct?
Yes,
It wasn't being used for inconsistent statement, is that correct?
yes.
Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then you only know what you know. It's not like Tubbs said, hey, Ma, I killed him for you. You know what I mean? It's like it was your car that was used. That's all you're testifying to. It was your car. that was used. Your son was killed to these facts. You know what I mean? Snitching is when you go buy a dime bag of weed, got it from this guy who gets it from this guy, and man, he's got a whole lot more. That is snitching. This isn't snitching. You remember that?
I don't recall that, but I did read it, so.
And you don't question its accuracy, do you?
Objection, Your Honor. The statement was read, whether Ms. Curtis recalled it or not. He said she didn't, otherwise it's hearsay.
No.
He really asked, did she recall or did she dispute the accuracy of the statement? Is that correct?
Yes.
Proceed.
It was after this that you then indicated that Tubbs had in fact told you that he had killed Antonio.
In the second interview, I believe, yes.
Tubbs testified during the trial of the individual who's doing 30 years for having killed Cameron. Tubbs testified in support of that prosecution, didn't he?
Yes, he did testify in Cameron's trial. He was with Cameron when he got killed, when he was shot.
I have no further questions.
Anything else, Mr. Fedora?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Curtis, you may step down. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a break for lunch at this time. Once again, do not listen to, read, or watch any news reports about this case or discuss with anyone else. Have a pleasant lunch. We'll see you back at 1:30. Please be seated. Record should reflect the jury is not present at this time. Anything for the record, Mr. Fedora?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. O'Farrell?
At this time, Your Honor.
And Mr. Fedora, how many more witnesses do you intend to call in your case overall? If you know, and how many do you intend to call this afternoon?
All right, so I will be calling Detective Jacobs next. Given we finished earlier, I believe I can get Detective Sergeant Rousseau in. So I'll try to have him come in, and that would be today. And then tomorrow I would have Detective Khan, and then I believe we're playing the testimony of Ms. Graham. So it's a total of five remaining witnesses.
Okay, 2 today and 3 tomorrow, or 3 today and 2 tomorrow?
I'm gonna try 3, Your Honor. I'll see if I can get everybody, get both in.
All right. And Mr. O'Farrell, I don't know if this time you have any witnesses you intend to produce, or
Haven't made that decision yet. Potentially 2, but they would be short witnesses.
we'll take a break and resume at 1:30.
Thank you.
You're welcome.